No! In 2017, my wife exploded.
What's up, y'all? Logan here. As an avid collector and strategic investor myself, I am so stoked to announce the launch of Liquid Marketplace, a platform where collectors can buy and sell fractions of rare collectibles via tokens on the blockchain.
If I ever started promoting some crypto bro scam coin, I'm gonna need one of y'all to waterboard me over a pit of fire. Alright, welcome back, ladies and ladies with dicks. When I'm often staring at my wall in deep thought, there's always the big three questions that never fail to wander around my mind. Do alternate realities exist? If they do, is there one where Rod Wave doesn't touch a microphone? I swear his music is just a big ass ball of sadness. And thirdly, which one of the Paul brothers do I dislike more? It's an incredibly difficult question to answer and honestly has the same effect of asking a parent to pick their favorite child. These two have been equally terrorizing every social media platform you can think of for the better part of a decade now. Although even as obnoxious as they are, I won't pretend they haven't delivered us some Hall of Fame YouTube moments like it's Everyday Bro, Santa diss track, and who could forget the timeless classic So Sorry, where he halfway apologized for hooting and hollering at a corpse while filming it for content.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
Nigga, what the fuck?
When I look back into their old vlogs and popular videos, I can't lie, a few tears start filling up my eye ducts because they perfectly capture that golden 2016 nostalgic era that everyone misses. A time where your entire homepage was filled with 1000 Degree Knife videos, diss tracks, and Alan Walker demos. You know, the days where times on YouTube and life in general were a lot more simpler. But I'm not here to reminisce on the past. The point is they objectively been in the spotlight for a very long time. And I think one of the main reasons they've been able to maintain so much relevancy throughout the years is them always being thrown into the center of some sort of controversy. After Logan's heartfelt apology towards the Japan trip, he swore to do better, and I guess his version of doing that was turning from exploiting the dead to exploiting his own fans. The poor little Logangers in the future would have all their lunch money stolen from multiple alleged crypto scams being promoted with Logan Paul's likeness. For example, I'm sure there's many of you that remember back in 2022 when Logan created his award-winning game called Cryptozoo, which was pitched as this easy online game that would make you money in your sleep. All you had to do was just buy a little of their in-game currency called zoo tokens. With those doubloons, you would hatch these digital eggs that rewarded you different animals you were forced to breed with each other. Then after that, you make them mate and you can get these ultra rare hybrid animal NFTs that over time collect you more tokens that you could either withdraw or cycle back into the game. Just on paper, it already sounds too good to be true, but a detail I always loved was Logan claiming these NFT pieces were hand-drawn absolute artistic masterpieces. He hired an entire team of artists to work non-stop around the clock to finish these one-of-one portraits, when this is what they apparently look like. With all due respect, this was before the days of AI, but this looks like my first ever project in Photoshop. There's no way this took more than 10 minutes to create. I bet a 76-year-old schizophrenic Vietnam veteran could be on the verge of overdosing on Xanax and still produce a better piece of artwork than whatever the fuck this is.
It's quick to make a digital asset with, you know, unique randomly generated characteristics. We handmade art for the past 6 months, bro. Approval, very specific notes, 10 different artists making art for our project.
Is it okay if I touch you?
Coffeezilla, one of the most renowned investigators on YouTube who's done countless amount of deep dives into infamous con artists and multi-million-dollar fraud operations. He ended up releasing a 3-part series calling Cryptozoo a giant scam, with many users revealing they lost thousands of dollars, with some people who bought tokens with Ethereum reporting that the fucking eggs wouldn't even hatch for them. They were left with the worthless clip art of an eggshell, which defeats the entire purpose of paying money in the first place when the only core mechanic in the game that people pay for doesn't even work.
Let's meet one of the victims, Helicopter Bob, to explain more.
My name is Rob. Helicopter Bob lost just under $7,000 with Cryptozoo.
And the first thing I asked Bob was about his animals, if he was making money with Cryptozoo, how much he made, and if the passive yield worked.
Oh, it never did from the beginning. It wasn't even written into the contract where it showed that you were actually yielding zoo, but there was nothing that was actually, backing that up. There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Wait. Play that again. Did you hear that?
There was no way to claim your yield. There never was.
Hold on. The core mechanic of Cryptozoo, that you can make money with these stupid animals, didn't even work on launch day. And still, to this day, a year later, still does not work, is what the investors are saying. Which, this is just crazy. People spent millions of dollars on these eggs.
So I acquired a bunch of eggs, and I actually want to play the game. I didn't acquire the eggs with the intent of keeping them. I actually wanted to hatch him and see what I got out of him and play in this ecosystem that's been advertised or whatever, right? And then I can't do anything. It's not showing up on the website when I connect my wallet, etc., etc. So I'm a little baffled. I'm like, I must be doing something wrong. So I open up a support ticket. Where Cryptozoo and Ben Roth is actually the person answering my support ticket. Oh yeah, no, it's down for the moment, but we're working on it. Let me tell you, it's never been up.
Wait, you can't even hatch?
No, I'm telling you, it's just a picture. There's nothing I can do with it.
You're kidding! You can't hatch?
There's nothing I can do with it. You could ask any of those community guys. That's basically worth nothing whatsoever.
Now, don't get me wrong, these people getting scammed is honestly natural selection. I mean, you have to be pretty stupid to buy cryptocurrency that's using Logan Paul as its poster boy. I've always thought NFT stands for no fucking testosterone, because I swear every investor acquires this build. But the premise of Logan allegedly scamming his audience still stood, and he eventually responded to the accusations by uploading a video where he basically doubled down on everything, threatening to sue Coffee for defamation and also blame everybody involved with Cryptozoo but himself, claiming that everybody that he worked with was the bad guy. He was just the odd man out, being oblivious to it all. I'm honestly risking my life by even telling you any of this, because nowadays he treats the word Cryptozoo like you're summoning Voldemort, having his brain suddenly factory reset whenever he's asked about it.
Tell you about this project when we get closer to launch. This project of mine is going to be...
Is that the thing with the egg? Like the zoo?
No.
Okay, this one's
gonna be this one's crazy.
And that brings us to a different controversy that he's under fire for in the present day, involving yet again another crypto market, with many people calling out the site for having a lot of shady tactics and issues with distributing funds, which is oddly comparable to the problems that users face with Cryptozoo back in the day. And it all begins a few years back when Logan hopped on the Pokemon card wave that began trending all over the internet, where he would become one of the thousands of creators that would upload themselves trying to find the rarest and most sought after cards in today's world. And not too long after he began his journey, he would end up getting his hands on the mythic holy grail of Pokemon cards, being the 1998 Pikachu Illustrator. Apparently there was only 40 ever made, and Logan managed to buy the only card in existence to have a PSA of 10, which basically means the card's condition is absolutely flawless. If there's one scratch or issue with the centering, it can immediately lower the grading down to a 9, which in this case could potentially bring the value down by millions of dollars.
There's one trading card that's the holy grail of the Pokemon game. A card that represents what Pokemon wouldn't be without. The coveted Pikachu Illustrator. This card became one of the most sought after trading cards ever. Collectors were traveling near and far to get their hands on it. Logan Paul made it his mission to own the only copy of the card that received a PSA 10 rating. It completed a sale, making it the most expensive card in the world.
And I can tell you the following: the most expensive Pokemon trading card sold at a private sale is a PSA Grade 10 Pikachu Illustrator card, $5,275,000 on July 22nd, 2021. You are officially amazing. Congratulations, you are new Guinness World Record.
I don't know how to explain it, but that Guinness guy sounded like the "you have been promoted" meme.
21. You are officially amazing. Congratulations. You are now one of my elite employees.
You heard that right though. Logan Paul allegedly paid over $5 million for the PSA 10 Illustrator, and he wasted no time flexing it to his audience, where he walked into his WrestleMania 38 debut wearing it as a chain pendant, jumping around the arena with the card swinging around his neck. Now, what the hell does any of this have to do with the crypto market that I mentioned earlier? Well, shortly after buying the PSA 10 Illustrator, Logan immediately announced he was creating another crypto website called Liquid Marketplace, a company that was founded in Canada, which is an important detail that I want everyone to keep in mind for later. Anyhow, the idea was to create an online market where everyday people could basically become partial owners of some of the most wanted and expensive trading cards in history by buying fractional shares with digital tokens. Unless I'm contracting Alzheimer's, I definitely feel like I heard Logan tell me this story before, where I would become rich and be a part of modern history by purchasing his shit-ass Chuck E. Cheese coins. A YouTuber by the name of Jobst gave a summary to how the market was supposed to operate and how the items even get traded in the first place, and I feel like he explains it in a much more concise way than Logan did during his marketing pitch, so I'll show you that summary along with the other clips that'll give you a better understanding to how the platform is even supposed to work.
I am so stoked to announce the launch of Liquid Marketplace, a platform where collectors can buy and sell fractions of rare collectibles via tokens on the blockchain. As a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace, I believe we're set to level the playing field by allowing anyone to own a piece of the world's rarest collectibles and build their portfolios instantly. Here's how it works. Liquid Marketplace will curate a collection of highly sought after items available in our ecosystem where users can buy in to be a partial owner. We'll keep the collectibles safe in our Liquid Marketplace vault, and when you're ready, you can buy, sell, and trade your portion of ownership with other members.
There are multiple parts to this post that are critical to understanding why Logan Paul is now in hot water. The first is the part where it says the card has sold out and is available for trading on the marketplace. With these fractional investment platforms, there are two phases when offering an asset, with the first being the initial offering. This is where the platform sells its equity to the public in the form of tokens. So in this case, in July 2022, LMP begins the offering phase. During this phase, people may buy ownership in the asset, and they are buying directly from LMP. This is phase 1. If and only if all of the initial offering is sold, they move to phase 2. Phase 2 is where the asset is put on the marketplace, where token holders may buy and sell tokens between one another.
Yeah, whatever Allstate is talking about. The only good hands I see my money being in is in the hands of Logan Paul. Some of the other collector cards he claimed you could own was a LeBron RPA and a Michael Jordan auto patch, both holding millions of dollars in value. I've already stated this multiple times, but you have to be a glue-chugging trog to even give this man a dime. But even with his past scandals, many Mavericks would still start shaking titties and getting all giddy towards the thought of throwing their money away to another one of Logan's projects, especially after he stated that the one and only PSA 10 Illustrator was now being listed on the Liquid Marketplace, and 51% of the ownership would not belong to Logan. It would actually belong to the people, the token holders, the Pokemon fanatics. They were the ones who can now vote and decide on the card's future, so if the community wanted to put it up for auction or sell it elsewhere, Logan could only sit back and twiddle his thumbs through the golden hairs of his ass crack, because he no longer retains majority ownership of the card anymore, allegedly. And you'll see why I say that later.
This was a very hard decision to make, but yes, I will be listing this card on a platform that I co-founded called Liquid Marketplace. It allows co-ownership of top-tier assets. So instead of one person, me owning this card, we as a collective can co-own it together. I'll also be listing it for $5 million instead of the $5.3 million I bought it for. So basically, I'll be giving you guys $300,000 discounts because everyone likes discounts. And I should say this, I'll be retaining 49% ownership of the card. So I won't actually have access to it. It'll be in our vault. But if I want to wear it out to fights or a Pokemon box break, or maybe even put it in a museum one day, the community can decide if we want to do that.
This was a very hard decision to make, my ass, dude. This was probably the first thought you had the moment you opened the card's briefcase. You heard it from the man though. The card is tucked away inside his super secret vault that's covered with laser traps pointed in every direction, like this shit is some Ocean 11 movie. So he couldn't possibly go back on his word and betray his loyal fans for the second time, right? Well, some skeptics like Rattle Pokemon, who's been calling out LMP ever since its inception. I mean, this guy is like the Coffeezilla of Pokemon. He's made over 40 videos on Liquid Marketplace in the past 3 years. But anyways, he decided to take a closer look and read in between the lines of the company's terms of service when they first dropped, where eventually, after scrolling through pages of paragraphs, he uncovered many shady rules and agreements that really make it no surprise to why investors would complain about feeling like they got finessed in the future.
Yes, most terms and conditions by any company are very, very in their favor. I mean, why wouldn't they be? But here, there's a lot of them claiming to not be responsible for anything. And not only that, but they can change anything when they feel like it. The token price can change, the amount of tokens, the amount that you can buy in the start, which is important. But we'll take a look through all of that right now. Here, I guess we'll go through the 5.1 transacting on the platform. The platform allows, or in the future may allow, so it's not done yet, you to purchase, collect, and showcase tokens representing a fractional interest in an underlying collectible. Each token is created as an ERC20 token on the Ethereum blockchain, stored in a digital wallet maintained by a third-party service provider. So again, it's not them, it's someone else. You're just, Liquid Marketplace is not responsible for the tokens themselves recorded on the platform. The marketplace is acting in the capacity of a service provider facilitating such transactions and is not a party to any transaction. Again, kind of removing themselves from the transaction itself. They're just helping facilitate those transactions, which seems very unnecessary. You may change or revise any aspect of these terms or the platform from time to time in our sole discretion by posting the revised terms on the platform or electronically sending you the revised terms. We change the rules when we want to. I guess it applies immediately. According to this, you acknowledge and agree that the form and nature of the platform and any part of it may change from time to time without prior notice to you, and that we may add new features and change any part of the platform at any time without notice. We may at any time and without notice or liability change, suspend, discontinue, or even terminate any aspect or the availability of any feature of this platform or impose limits on certain of its features.
What is the point of writing these sophisticated ass rules if you're just going to mysteriously change all of them without notifying the customers? This platform sounds like the opposite of user-friendly and a far cry from what Logan pitched it out to be. Now, when we jump to the present day, Liquid Marketplace is a barren wasteland. If you try to look for anything about it, it's just crickets and cobwebs. I mean, the last post they ever made on their social media was all the way back in 2023, where it wasn't even Logan giving any developments, it was this random ass motherfucker. I dead thought I was looking at more Pegasus for a second. There's no point even showing any of the updates they promised to the customers because none of them ever came. Logan quietly distanced himself from the entire equation, and investors are now complaining about their wife leaving them and taking the family dog over putting down the monthly rent into owning 0.3% of a Pokemon card. If we take a look at this user, he says, "Hey, I had lots of balance on my LMP account, and now when I try to see if the value of my holds increase, the website doesn't work. I'd like to request the money I invested back, otherwise I will have to sue. Thank you." Your money is gone.
And it's gone.
What?
It's gone. It's all gone.
I mean, somebody had to tell him, you have a better chance of uncovering Atlantis than getting that shit back. And this guy is far from the only person suffering because his comment would be one of many that are protesting against not being able to access their funds. We have another guy writing how he got locked out of his own account from a 2FA bug, costing him apparently over $12,000. And once he tried to contact support to maybe do their jobs and help him out, he was met with radio silence. And remember, we're not looking at my words here. These are the dozens of testimonies given by former customers who all share eerily similar stories, describing the only sole and core function of Liquid Marketplace being the fucking market somehow not being able to work properly. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse, Logan Paul would also recently make a guest appearance on some Netflix show called King of Collectibles, The Golden Touch, where he reveals the PSA 10 Illustrator is being put up for auction, but not just any auction, because the card ended up being sold to the one and only Ken Goldin.
Who?
Yeah, to blow out a queef and keep it a Chuck beef, I had no idea who the hell that was, but after doing surface research, he's a well-respected auctioneer who sold over $1 billion in expensive memorabilia, that eventually worked his way to become the CEO of his own company called Goldin Auctions, along with running his own Netflix show. Logan would end up starring on an episode where the two chatted their way into a deal that resulted in the $5 million Illustrator being sold to Goldin so he can list it on his next upcoming auction. And because of the sale, Logan would additionally be granted a partial royalty on every single item that gets sold at the auction. I mean, as soon as the idea was pitched, money signs lit up in Logan's eyes like Mr. Krabs. This was an offer that was too good for him to turn down.
You will write the check right now?
Yes.
You got the funds?
I'd have to, of course.
I have to say, my heart tells me to do this deal with you, and so I will do the deal with you.
Great.
Now, surely this deal had to be ultimately decided by the investors before taking place. After all, Logan only owns 49% of the Illustrator. He was preaching like Gandhi about having the community be the ones who could vote on what they would want to happen to the card as a collective.
And I should say this, I'll be retaining 49% ownership of the card, so I won't actually have access to it. It'll be in our vault.
So he couldn't have possibly made this decision himself, right? I mean, if buyers were the ones who had majority ownership, then this whole entire arrangement had to be set up by them. Well, we learned by now that Logan doesn't exactly spit words of virtue. Trusting what he says is like trusting Bill Cosby to be your bartender. And Logan would absolutely make sure to prove he's a gaping ass by announcing that he repurchased the card through an alleged buyback. And the only reason he was able to do this was through a legal loophole that's buried in LMP's terms of service. And Karl went out of his way to go over this exact rule, explaining how he was able to allegedly buy the Illustrator back without the other token holders giving permission or even being notified. Apparently, all Logan had to do to get the card back was buy enough tokens to reach what's called a token threshold. Once the threshold is reached, Logan can reclaim having full ownership over the card. And this is a big issue not only because it renders the entire point of the platform to be useless, but additionally the threshold is not some predetermined or fixed amount like you would think, because within the company's TOS it states that they were the only ones who could change the cost of the buyout at any time, which led a lot of speculation that Logan repurchased the card at a significantly lower price than the $5 million it was originally listed for.
However, luckily for Logan, there was a loophole that did allow him to get his card back. The terms also describe the process of a buyout, i.e. someone buying the collectible back from LMP. The terms state that LMP may allow users to purchase all of the tokens associated with a certain collectible without the other token holders associated with that collectible executing a sale. Meaning that if LMP decides to initiate a buyout, token holders can have all of their tokens bought from them at any time without them having any power to stop it. The only condition that must be met for LMP to initiate a buyout is that someone first acquires the minimum number of tokens associated with that collectible, called the buyout threshold. However, the buyout threshold is not a fixed amount. It's literally just whatever LMP decides it is at any given time. The terms even explicitly state that the minimum number of tokens is something that LMP may establish from time to time. LMP could make the threshold 90% one day and 10% the next day, and there is nothing in the terms to prevent them from doing it. All LMP would need to do is make the buyout threshold less than 49%, which they can do whenever they want. And then LMP can simply allow Logan to exercise a buyout at their discretion. And there is not a single thing the other token holders can do about it.
Of course, once the information got out, people were outraged and demanding to know why they never got compensated about Logan's sudden buyback, because majority if not all of the token holders were still claiming that they never been paid. And after a lot of backlash with pitchforks being raised at his throat, he would drop an incredibly long statement on Twitter blaming everyone involved but himself for all the problems that customers have dealt with, and he also tried to insinuate he had zero idea that token holders were missing their funds, because at the time he was informed that the tokens had been distributed accordingly. And just this big corporate slop post that looked like it was written by 3 lawyers in ChatGPT. So Logan starts off this statement by saying, "Attention Liquid Marketplace users. As you may know, the PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator was previously listed on Liquid Marketplace, where users could purchase tokens that, according to the company, represented fractional ownership's interest in the card. In May 2024, consistent with the platform's terms, I repurchased the card and paid a substantial buyout amount to the platform, which was intended to be distributed to fractional owners based on their respective percentages." Well, with the knowledge that LMP are the ones who create the threshold, along with investors still calling the company out for getting screwed out of their money, it really makes you wonder how much did Logan buy back the card for. And the alleged amount he spent for the repurchase was merely $250,000, which is a lot, but nowhere near the $5 million price that he originally claims he bought it for. And if token holders truly held 51%, that would mean at the time the Illustrator was listed on the market back in 2022, they owned over $2 million in fractional shares. And I guess LMP decided to fractionally fuck everybody in the face because this $250,000 number doesn't make any sense towards the original amount that's theoretically supposed to be owed. I was informed at the time that the funds had been distributed accordingly. Well, get new informers because they told you wrong. Also, ain't you a co-founder? Like, ain't this your job to make sure shit like this works?
What's up, y'all? So you may have seen me introduce myself as a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace.
Put the gloves down and get back in the office, Mr. Paul. Your nameplate is waiting for you. Unfortunately, afterward, the company and some of its principals faced regulatory scrutiny, a process in which I had no involvement or insight as it does not relate to me. I was going to make a joke about his old fan base that was filled with a bunch of chapstick chewing 12-year-olds who are all grown up now and aren't this gullible to fall for this obvious PR stunt. But then I realized that every single person who was gullible enough to give Logan Paul money were fully grown men with beards on their chin and hair on their sacks, which honestly makes it even more sad that me and a crypto bro who gave his life savings away to a Z-list WWE wrestler can both legally register to vote. Also, what the hell are you even talking about, Logan? You said it multiple times yourself that you're a co-founder of the very company that's currently under fire by the public right now. So how will these platform issues not relate to you in any way? I recently learned that the platform also experienced operational issues, which affected user access to accounts and funds held on the platform. As a result, many Liquid Marketplace users have been unable to access their buyout proceeds or wallet balances, with no clear timeline for resolution. For those affected and unable to withdraw your funds, please know that I'm actively working with Liquid Marketplace to help ensure these funds can be released in the near future. Just as intended when I repurchased the Illustrator in May 2024. Stay tuned for updates. And to absolutely nobody's surprise, nothing ever really came from this. Buyers were still complaining about allegedly never receiving a single penny, and now with Logan suddenly avoiding accountability like the plague, saying he didn't have the faintest clue towards what was going on, but him being the hero he is will work with the company that's publicly being accused of scamming because that'll sure do the trick. Matter of fact, not even publicly, in his own statement he said LMP was under regulatory scrutiny. So if some 3-letter organization corporation or the government is investigating their way into this, then there has to be some serious shit going on behind the scenes. And it turns out back in 2024, shortly after Logan rebought his Pikachu and dipped from Liquid Marketplace, the company was hit with a new bombardment of severe allegations from the OSC, Ontario Securities Commission, which is an agency that regulates capital markets in Ontario. They pulled their condom off and hit the company raw, accusing Liquid Marketplace of being nothing but a multi-layered fraud, claiming they lied about how many tokens were actually sold, alleging the total amount was only $2.7 million, which would make zero sense because remember, the only way a card gets put onto the market is if all the card's tokens get completely sold out. The PSA 10 Illustrator already takes $2.5 million out of the equation, so with multiple other $1 million cards like the Michael Jordan auto patch and a different PSA 8 Pikachu that are both worth millions apparently being sold out and listed onto the market, which brought the $2.7 million number to be a total shock to investors.
LMP listed many other collectibles as well. For example, a PSA 8 Pikachu Illustrator with a total value of $1.1 million, which also apparently sold out. We know it was supposed to have sold out because it was trading on the marketplace, which only happens once all of the initial offering is sold. This mechanic was made crystal clear by LMP employee Avic on their subreddit. So already, with just these two cards alone, that's $3.6 million, more than what the company took in total for its entire existence. And you can see on the marketplace there were a bunch of other expensive items as well. How is this possible? It doesn't seem to make any sense. Well, the truth is that it isn't possible. And the reason this discrepancy exists is because, according to the OSC, LMP was lying about their collectibles being sold out. The complaint states, LMP represented to actual and prospective token purchasers that LMP tokens represent legal fractional ownership of the underlying collectibles, including that LMP tokens are offered for pre-order on an initial drop, and only once all tokens for a collectible are fully sold on the initial drop does the collectible move to the marketplace, where token purchasers can trade their fractional ownership with other LMP platform users. Contrary to these representations, LMP moved collectibles to the marketplace that had not sold out on the initial drop, and deposited the unsold LMP tokens into LMP platform accounts that were owned or controlled by the LMP principals or their affiliates.
Apparently there was this trader's fee that taxes people every time they make a trade, and that's how the company is supposed to make a lot of their money. But since nobody was buying enough tokens to list anything on the market, they just decided to do it themselves. And it only gets worse because the OSC also stated the founders allegedly pocketed $3 million of the total $10 million that was raised by investors and put them into their own shell companies, when they originally only claimed to take a one-time salary of $100,000. So that was all a lie. And apparently the OSC claimed hundreds of thousands of dollars were spent on the founders' personal expenses like luxury spas and designer clothes.
Originally, these three gentlemen lied to the OSC, claiming that they only received a salary of around $100,000 each and only for 1 year in 2022. But after further investigation, the OSC uncovered that these three individuals paid themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars in salaries each and extracted millions from LMP to companies they owned.
The OSC also tried to claim that the tokens never even represented legal ownership in the first place, and a laundry list of other allegations that would take me hours to go into. But you might be noticing by now that Logan Paul isn't mentioned in any way, shape, or form. The only founders they ever bring up are these three guys who live in Canada named Ryan, Ammon, and Dennis. How come Logan isn't brought up into any of this if he was this apparent co-founder after all? Well, the reason was never exactly given, but if I were to guess, I just think they realized it would be easier to go after the three guys who live in their home city than chase after a man that lives in Puerto Rico. Of course, Liquid Marketplace would turn into a complete ghost town after this, with the website no longer even having the ability to function. These are all accusations though, so make sure to take everything with a little grain of salt, but it sure seems like the OSC ain't messing around because I believe this investigation is still ongoing. For the last topic I'm covering, we gotta take our story back to Rattle Pokemon, who dropped the biggest plot twist of them all, saying that in his opinion, the PSA 10 Illustrator was just a myth, a giant ruse and hoax. The card should have never been a 10 grade because previous photos of the card before Logan got it into his possession show the grading allegedly being a 9. And his reasoning why the Pikachu could have got bumped up to a 10 by the time Logan bought it was because PSA just didn't care about Pokemon cards up until very recently. It costed next to no dollars back then to resubmit your card for grading over and over again, and Rattle speculates that PSA got tired of the card constantly being submitted and just eventually gave it a 10. 10. It sounds crazy, but when you look at past photos of the alleged same card, you can see the grading number being labeled as a 9. And apparently it remained that way for quite a long time, so for it to become perfect overnight and now suddenly be hailed as the only 10 to ever touch the earth doesn't really add up towards the previous treatment the card was given in the past.
Starting off, as everyone has probably seen, anyone that's been around in the hobby for a long time, the card in question, the PSA 10, should not be a PSA 10. That's my opinion. Maybe if you submit it enough times, and this was the case here, because this thing was submitted several times until it finally got a 10. Back in those times, for anyone that's wondering, PSA did not care. The S does not stand for Pokemon. And yes, it was less than $10 per submission, so you could just send this thing in a jillion times. You might have to do it a few times before the low-wage employee decides to slap a 10 on it, and all of a sudden you have the only 10 copy. So that's the thing that's coming up here.
To further prove his case on how this card shouldn't be a 10, Rattle would closely examine the current Illustrator that's being listed on Goldin auctions, and he claims the current condition of the card should never be anything above a 9, due to the amount of whitening and tiny blemishes that could be found along its edges. Here Rattle tweets, "Not only was Logan Paul's PSA 10 Illustrator used to scam investors and users on Liquid Marketplace, it also shouldn't be a 10. It was graded a 9 several times previous to a slip-up. It cost single-digit dollars back then to regrade, and PSA didn't care about Pokemon at that time." And when we look at the photos he provides, there could be some signs of whitening that can be found in almost every corner. For example, when we see the top right of the card, you can see a little white streak forming along the edge. Sort of similar story when you look at the bottom left corner, there are a few white specks or dots that can be seen around the edges. There's a little white blemish around the bottom right that people are seeing too. Point is, little flaws like this can heavily affect modern PSA scores, which in turn would heavily affect the value of this so-called PSA 10 Illustrator. And that's pretty scary because the card is now being rumored to sell anywhere between $7 to $12 million at this next upcoming auction. Hey, post-editing BriZ coming in to inform you that the card is officially sold for over $16 million. The whole event was live streamed on Logan Paul's channel, which also broke the world record for the most expensive trading card in history to ever be sold. And even though the whole part of the deal was for Logan to hand deliver the Illustrator to the special winner, the guy who bought it mysteriously just teleports up to the stage out of nowhere ready to take the card.
Tonight you sold the PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator card for $16,492,000. On behalf of Guinness World Records, I can now confirm you have achieved a new record title for not only for the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold at auction, but also the overall record for the most expensive trading card ever sold at auction.
Real story is I'm on a planetary treasure hunt right now, and I'm on a quest to buy a T-Rex dinosaur fossil. That's on my list. I'm gonna buy the Declaration of Independence, maybe from you. Yep. We'll find out.
Oh, this is crazy.
And I'm not stopping there.
So for a little recap, the card was previously graded a 9 before, has years of sketchy history with Logan Paul and Shady conmen, and was pushed as a selling symbol for a platform that's being investigated for alleged fraud. The value of the card has been thrown into question multiple times. The investors of Liquid Marketplace were complaining for years about never receiving or being able to access any funds, and as far as we know, the only thing he's done about it was make one tweet calling everyone a dumbass for not reading the fine print. And as of yesterday, he would also come out with a new statement announcing that Liquid Marketplace investors can now, after years of complaining, ghosting, and inflation messing up the prices, the investors were finally promised what they should have been given on day one, which was just for investors to have access to their accounts and funds. And what's even more shocking is he also claims that only 5.4% of the card was sold instead of the original 51% that he offered. I mean, all of this sounds oddly similar to how Cryptozoo panned out, and I think the one lesson to take away from this video is you're better off flushing your money down the toilet than handing it over to Logan Paul. But I think I'm going to wrap the video up there. If you guys enjoyed me covering the Logan Paul allegations, make sure to slap a like on this vid before your dad slaps you. Subscribe if you hit my vibe, and as always, make sure to follow me on my other socials, especially my Instagram. All the links will be down in the description below. Huge shout out to Karl, Jobst, Rattle Pokemon, and Jamari for providing me a lot of info and clips I wanted to include in today's video. So if you want to check them out, their channels will be linked down below too. That being said, I will catch you all really soon. This obviously took a little longer because there was a lot of information to include, so expect a future video in Adam 22 within the next 2 weeks. I love you all, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Alright, I'm gonna head out this bitch.